Dumba!
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. If those words just sent something moving through your chest, you already know what we're talking about. So let's walk through the whole journey, from that first gamma ray accident to a 1990 TV movie that finally gave David Banner the conclusion his story always deserved. Part 1. The World and Premise. Picture 1977. America was still exhaling after Watergate, still finding its footing after Vietnam. People weren't looking for invincible superheroes in shiny armor. They wanted something more human, something that hurt. And that's exactly what CBS delivered when The Incredible Hulk premiered on March 10, 1977. First as a TV movie, and then as a full series the following year. The world of the show wasn't futuristic or fantastical. It was grimly, beautifully ordinary. Dusty highways, small towns, diners, construction sites, hospital corridors. The kind of America you drove through on summer road trips with your parents, where everything felt a little worn in and familiar. That grounded quality is what made the extraordinary feel real. When David Banner walked into a new town, it looked like a town people actually lived in, worked in, struggled in. That mattered more than any special effect. The central premise was heartbreakingly simple. Dr. David Banner wanted to cure himself. That's it. No world domination to stop, no alien invasion to repel. Just one man trying to reclaim his own humanity after accidentally exposing himself to an overdose of gamma radiation during a reckless experiment. Now, whenever stress or anger pushed him past a certain threshold, he transformed into a massive, green, unstoppable creature. Every episode, the clock was ticking on that transformation, and David knew it. The internal tension that created, this brilliant, gentle man perpetually managing his own emotional temperature, never got old across 5 seasons. He could never stay anywhere long enough to fix it. Always running. Always one step from losing himself. Completely. The hero we wanted to be. Bill Bixby's David Banner was unlike any hero on television at the time. He wasn't tough the way Starsky or Hutch were tough. He was quiet, brilliant, and deeply sad. The kind of sad you recognized even as a kid, even if you couldn't quite name it. He was a scientist, a man of reason, and the cruelest irony of his life was that his own most human quality, his anger, was the thing that undid him. The easiest comparison is The Fugitive. David Banner was Richard Kimball, with something monstrous waiting just under the surface. Every week he'd land in a new town, form a brief, genuine connection with someone in trouble, try desperately to help, and inevitably, something would push him over the edge. His shirt would tear, his eyes would go white, and then Lou Ferrigno would step into frame, all 7 feet of green menace, to handle what David Banner couldn't. What made David compelling wasn't strength, it was his refusal to give up on himself. He carried the weight of a monster inside him, and still chose, every single day, to show up for other people with whatever calm he had left. That's not a small thing to ask of a character. Bixby understood it, and he played it with a restraint that made every transformation feel like a loss rather than a spectacle. The women who crossed his path. The series ran on a rotating cast of guest characters, new faces each episode, new situations, new people for David to help before moving on. The women in these stories were often where the emotional weight landed. Nurses, teachers, activists, mothers, ordinary people in difficult circumstances, and David's quiet, protective nature always pulled him toward them. These weren't damsels waiting to be rescued. Most of them were dealing with problems that had nothing to do with David until his path crossed theirs. And the best episodes treated those stories with as much seriousness as the main arc. The woman who matters most to the complete arc of the story is Jasmine, who appears in the 1990 TV movie The Death of the Incredible Hulk. She's a spy, complicated and dangerous, operating in a world of shadows and criminal organizations. But what makes her memorable isn't the espionage, it's the fact that she sees David clearly, as a person, in the middle of what turns out to be his final hours. That kind of recognition meant everything to a man who had spent a decade hiding what he was.
McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
The villain we loved to hate. There was no cackling supervillain in a cape on this show. The closest thing to an antagonist was a man with a notepad and a nose for a headline. Jack McGee, investigative reporter, played with magnificent tenacity by Jack Colvin. McGee wasn't evil, and that was exactly the point. He genuinely believed the Hulk was a dangerous creature the public needed protecting from. He was doing his job. He wasn't even wrong to pursue the story. He just didn't have enough information. His obsession became a cage for David Banner, who could never settle, never rest, never fully focus on finding a cure without the risk of McGee closing in. McGee was the hound to David's fox, persistent, principled, and utterly exhausting in the way only a truly dedicated journalist can be. He was, in his own way, as trapped by the story as David was. Part 2: The Journey and the Ending. The episodes that defined the series. Every episode followed the same melancholy structure, and somehow it never got old. David Banner would arrive somewhere new, usually broke, usually hitchhiking, under that opening piano theme that still lands like something physical if you haven't heard it in a while. He'd find work, find someone worth protecting, find trouble. And the Hulk would handle what David couldn't. The transformation sequences became the heartbeat of the show. Bixby's face contorting, the contact lenses going white, the veins rising. Then Ferrigno taking over, tearing through whatever needed tearing through. Kids across America were practicing that grimace on the playground Monday morning without realizing it. But the real emotional weight was always in the quiet moments. David sitting across a diner table from someone who'd started to trust him, already knowing he'd be gone by morning. Those scenes landed then, and they land differently now. Heavier somehow, because you understand more clearly what it costs a person to keep making that choice. The ongoing mission. 5 seasons, 82 episodes. David Banner never stopped running, and he never stopped searching. The show evolved as it went. The situations became more varied, the emotional territory deepened, and Bixby kept finding new layers in a character that could have been repetitive in lesser hands. McGee remained a constant throughout, and the show was disciplined enough never to fully demonize him. He functioned as a kind of dark mirror for David, another man consumed by an obsession he couldn't let go of, even when it cost him. The question the show kept leaving open, what would happen if McGee finally caught up, if he finally understood what David Banner actually was, became its own ongoing dramatic engine? Would he have helped? Would he have understood? The show asked that for 5 seasons and never answered it. That restraint was a choice, and it was the right one. The series settled, over time, into being the loneliest show on American television. Oddly, that loneliness was part of what made it so watchable. The final episode, and the silence that followed. The series aired its last episode, A Minor Problem, in 1982. And it ended the way most episodes ended. David Banner arrived in a new town, something went wrong, the Hulk appeared, David Banner moved on. Credits rolled. That was it. CBS canceled the series without warning, without a finale, without giving David Banner or his audience any kind of closure. It was the television equivalent of a friend stopping mid-sentence and just walking away. 5 years of emotional investment, and the story simply stopped. No resolution to the Cure storyline, no final reckoning with McGee, no acknowledgement that this was goodbye. Fans held on to the open questions for years. Did he ever find the cure? Did McGee ever learn the truth? Did Banner ever stop running? For a long time, the only honest answer was that nobody knew. Why it ended when it did. Ratings had declined by the 5th season, and CBS made the straightforward business decision to cancel. There was no dramatic behind-the-scenes story. It just ended the way shows ended when the numbers stopped working. The sting of it was real, though, because the series had built an audience that was genuinely invested in David Banner as a person, not just as a weekly entertainment vehicle. That kind of attachment doesn't dissolve cleanly when the credits roll for the last time without warning. What could have been, and what eventually was. The cancellation left a lot unresolved. The Cure had been tantalizingly close so many times. Banner would make progress, something would intervene, the Hulk would inadvertently destroy whatever breakthrough was within reach. McGee's arc was wide open. The confrontation viewers had been waiting for through 5 seasons never materialized on the original series. For 8 years, that's where things sat. A beautiful, broken story without an ending. And then 1990 arrived, and CBS brought Bixby and Ferrigno back. The true ending, the death of the Incredible Hulk. The title left nothing to the imagination, and the film honored it completely. In the movie, David Banner is working alongside Dr. Ronald Pratt, a scientist with real resources and genuine commitment to solving the gamma radiation problem. For the first time in years, maybe ever, Banner lets himself believe the cure is actually close. He allows himself something like hope, and he lets his guard down in ways he hasn't permitted himself before. He starts forming real connections again, talking about the future in a way that sounds like he believes in it. Given that the entire series was built on denied hope, putting him in that position is about as cruel a narrative setup as you can imagine. Jasmine enters the picture at exactly the wrong moment. She's a spy whose work in the criminal underworld collides directly with the research Banner is connected to, and suddenly, everything he's been building is at risk again. The old pattern reasserts itself. It always does, with David Banner. The climax happens aboard an airplane. The criminals are making their move, and Banner, the man who has spent over a decade trying desperately not to transform, makes a deliberate choice. He lets it happen. He transforms willingly, knowingly, to protect Jasmine. The Hulk absorbs the impact of a fall from the plane, shields her from certain death, and takes the damage himself. Then the Hulk is gone, and what remains is David Banner, broken, still, and dying. His injuries aren't survivable, and he knows it. In those final moments, something shifts. The anger is gone. The running is over. The burden he's been carrying across a decade of lonely highways and anonymous towns and near misses and setbacks is finally completely lifted. For the first time in the entire run of the story, David Banner is at peace. Jasmine holds him. Through her tears, she says the words that function as the story's final statement. He's free. 2 words. The whole emotional arc of David Banner's life, landing in 2 words. It's the ending the original series never got to give. Not triumphant, not tidy, but achingly right. The man who spent his life trying to cure himself found the only cure the story had left to offer. Rest, release, an end to the running.
Anger. Elena, I was angry and upset. And last night I was angry too.
The legacy. The Incredible Hulk taught a generation something about carrying pain you didn't choose, and about the kind of dignity that comes from refusing to let that pain make you cruel. David Banner never gave up. He was never bitter. He kept choosing every week to help people who had no idea what he was carrying. That's what the show was actually about, underneath all the transformations and torn shirts and highway hitchhiking. It was about what it costs a person to keep being good when everything is working against them. Lou Ferrigno became a genuine pop culture icon, making cameo appearances in the later Marvel films as an affectionate callback to this version of the character. The 2003 and 2008 theatrical Hulk films expanded the mythology, but neither of them replicated what made the TV series work. That specific, quiet heartbreak of watching Bill Bixby walk away down a lonely road while the piano theme played out. The original series holds up as one of the most emotionally honest superhero stories American television ever produced. David Banner spent over a decade running from himself, and when his story finally ended, it ended with grace, with sacrifice, and with exactly the quiet dignity the character had always deserved. This was never really a show about a monster. It was a show about a man, and Bill Bixby made sure you never once forgot that. The series shaped how a whole generation thought about what heroes actually look like. Not people without flaws, but people who carry their flaws and keep showing up anyway. That idea hasn't aged at all. If you grew up with this show, I'd genuinely love to know. Which part of it stuck with you? The weekly episodes of David always one town from home? Or that 1990 goodbye? Drop it in the comments. I read all of them. If this brought something back, hit like and subscribe. We're here every week for the shows that made us. Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.